If you're a parent, you've been there. You're at the pediatrician's office, you see all those numbers and lines on the growth chart, and you wonder, what does it all really mean? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify the whole thing. We'll show you exactly how experts track your child's nutritional health.
Okay, let's just start with this image because it really says it all. Childhood growth isn't just a straight line up. It's this incredibly complex journey. And as our source material points out, there are so many things that influence it, from genetics to their environment. But you know what one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle is? Nutrition.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the why this is all so important. Then we'll get into the what, the actual toolkit that professionals use to figure this out. And finally, we'll see how all that data gets pieced together to paint a really clear picture of a child's health. All right, first things first. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, let's talk about the big question. Why is paying attention to this so absolutely critical?
To put it simply, good nutrition is the bedrock of their health. It's what fuels their little bodies to fight off sickness, it's what powers their physical growth spurts, and it's essential for healthy brain development. And that's exactly why these routine assessments aren't just a nice-to-have. They're an absolutely essential part of your child's healthcare.
Okay, so we know why it's a big deal, but what does a nutritional assessment actually involve? Well, you can think of it like a little bit of detective work, and luckily there's a simple but really powerful framework for gathering all the clues.
You see, to get the full story, professionals never rely on just one single test or measurement. Nope, they use a whole combination of methods. It really is like a detective piecing together different clues to solve the case of your child's health.
And here is that very framework. It's called the ABCDs, which is just a super easy way to remember the 4 key parts: anthropometric, biochemical, clinical, and dietary. So, let's break down what each of those actually means. Let's start with the part you've probably seen at every single checkup, the A, which stands for anthropometrics. This is all about the art and science of physical measurement.
So what is that big word, anthropometrics? It's actually pretty simple. It's just the science of measuring the human body. For kids, this means carefully tracking their size, their weight, and their proportions to see exactly how they're growing over time.
Now, here's what's so interesting. Different measurements tell us different things. A child's weight, for example, can go up and down pretty quickly, right? It reflects short-term changes. But their length or their stature, that tells a much longer story about their nutritional journey over months or even years.
And when it comes to infants, precision is everything. Their weight is measured using incredibly accurate tools, whether it's a modern digital scale like you see on the left, or those classic, super reliable beam balance scales. And of course, the tools have to change as the child grows. For babies who can't stand up yet, their length is measured while they're lying down on a special board called an infantometer. But once they're old enough to stand nice and tall, they get measured with what's called a stadiometer.
Now, beyond just height and weight, there's another really key measurement called the mid-upper arm circumference, or MUAC for short. It's a surprisingly simple but really effective way to get a quick snapshot of a child's muscle and fat stores.
So how do they get it right? Well, it's a very precise process. A professional will literally take a tape measure and find the distance from the very tip of the shoulder down to the point of the elbow to find the exact midpoint of the upper arm.
Then, they take a special tape that doesn't stretch and wrap it around that exact spot they marked. It's an incredibly fast and effective screening tool that's used all over the world to assess nutritional status.
Okay, so that's the A, the physical measurements. But remember, that's just one piece of the puzzle. To really get the full picture, we need to look at B, C, and D, which tell us what's happening on the inside and on their plate.
B stands for biochemical. This is where we look under the hood with lab tests. A simple blood test, for instance, can check hemoglobin to see if a child's getting enough iron, which is so crucial for energy. Other markers can tell us about their overall protein levels. It's a look inside. Next up, C is for clinical. This is the hands-on physical exam, where a doctor's looking for visible clues, like the condition of a child's skin, their hair, their muscles. And finally, D is for dietary. This is where we talk about food, reviewing what a child actually eats and drinks, maybe by keeping a food diary, to get a handle on their daily intake.
So, you've gathered all this data, the A, the B, the C, and the D. What happens next? This is where we move from just a list of numbers into a really meaningful story about your child's health.
All of those measurements get plotted on these standardized growth charts, the ones from big organizations like the World Health Organization and the CDC. And these charts are amazing because they don't just show your child's numbers,
They compare their growth to thousands and thousands of other healthy kids of the exact same age and sex.
And if you take away just one thing from this explainer, let it be this. A single dot on that chart doesn't really tell you much. What truly matters is the pattern, the curve that all those dots create over months and years. The real question is your child following their curve? That's the whole story.
These charts use what are called percentiles to show how a child compares to their peers. For instance, you might hear about body mass index, or BMI. A BMI at or above the 85th percentile for their age is a flag, a signal that it might be time to have a conversation with your doctor about healthy habits. It's not a diagnosis, it's a starting point.
So all this science, all this data, it all boils down to one really personal and empowering question for every parent and caregiver out there. How can you be an active partner in this entire process?
And you know what? The answer is simple, but it is so powerful. It's about showing up. By making sure your child gets to all their regular checkups, and by keeping an open, honest line of communication with your pediatrician, you become the most valuable player on the team that helps your child not just grow, but truly thrive.